take this as an evidence that in representative democracy, citizens may suffer of a new kind of corruption, a duplicitous corruption that consists in excluding those who have equal citizenship from a meaningful presence in the forum of opinions, and doing so in a way, and this is our paradox, in a way that the excluded cannot even prove their exclusion. They cannot prove it because they have, after all, the right to vote. So to conclude this first part and go quickly to the final and second part on the plebiscite of the audience. When opinion is introduced in our understanding of politics and democratic sovereignty, then a theory of representation must attend to the question of the circumstances of opinion formation. This is not a secondary problem. Citizens' equal rights to an equal share in determining the political will ought to go together with citizens' meaningful opportunities to be informed, but also to form and express and voice their ideas and give them public weight and influence. We don't have that now. So although influence can hardly be equal and estimated with rigorous calculations, the opportunity to exercise it can and should tend to be so. Although, as said above, we can hardly prove beyond any reasonable doubt that there is a causal relationship between media content, public opinion, and the quality of political results or decisions, the opportunity to participate in the formation of political opinions should be enjoyed equally by all. So the right to speech is not simply the right of the individual against the state. It is also the right of the citizen to form and participate in the formation of the agenda and the political decisions of the democracy. Now, having said or conclude at least the first part concerning hierarchy and the dialectical character and why it's important to pay attention to opinion in the formation of the sovereign and not simply to the voting. So, representative democracy is not simply electoral democracy. Let me now to go to illustrate one of these configurations, which I call publicite of the audience, or passivity of the people in front of the leader's performance. In the United States, recently, two important books came out prizing this plebiscitarian transformation of democracy that would, according to these two authors, overcome the constitutional kind of democracy, and instead of insisting on division of powers, to give instead to the people more power in controlling the leader. Two books, ANPOCS and Adrian Vermeul, titled The Executive Unbound, Oxford Press, 2010, and by Oxford Press 2010, same year, Jeffrey Edward Green, The Eye of the People. This is an interesting phenomenon, not only in the States and also in Europe, very important is becoming now. This new enthusiasm for plebiscitary democracy comes with the illusion that by making the people able to intrude in the life of the leader, they can control the leader. Much better than a court, much better than division of power or checks and balances. To anticipate in a nutshell my argument in this part, I claim that plebiscitary democracy is a possible destiny that representative democracy incubates, but it's not a good one. Now, in this above-mentioned book by Jeffrey Green, The Eye of the People, we read the following. Plebiscitarianism promises to restore the notion of the people as a meaningful concept of collective identity within contemporary political life. And it does so by rendering the people in his collective capacity, I quote, a masked spectator of public elites. Now, the question is that when leaders go to the people directly, they radicalize issues and make parties bargaining very difficult. And indeed, this plebiscitarian outcome or plebiscitarian trajectory comes together with the decline of political parties, the decline of parliamentary democracy in the world. It also comes along with, and why it's called audience, I call it audience, it also comes along with the transformation of the public sphere of opinion formation by the entrance of, as Sartori also noticed, of these new media like not only internet and television. Media that make the citizens private persons. In the media system, we are private persons. We enter the media system as private persons. An aggregation of private persons. We are not citizens when we do so. According to Niklas Luhmann, in a fantastic book on communication, it is not, he says, a word of communication to begin with, the word of communication creates a word of itself, a total reality, with no external reference point of judgment. Is a word of itself. Lippmann already developed this idea in the 20s in a negative way. This word created by the mass media is a word of itself. And according to Niklas Luhmann, it is not a word of communication to begin with, communication. Because with this instrument, interactions between senders and receivers of images is ruled out. We call it communication, but there is no communication. And it is precisely this interaction of the contact between the receivers and the senders of images that ensures a high level of the freedom of the media. The freedom of the media is in proportion as there is a break of communication between the media and us. They produce, they stimulate, they don't receive or listen, even if they say this is public opinion. And it is precisely this interruption of direct contact with the audience that ensures a high level of freedom of the media with the important coda that the receivers are truly passive recipients, in proportion as the media are truly free. So this is an important point. This makes judgment itself, public judgment there, a difficult issue to be claimed as an expression of autonomy of the citizen or the people as the plebiscitarian theorists today state as. But there is another reason here that I want to share with you. Let us discuss indeed the main idea of this plebiscite of the audience. And why is so good? These theories argue that the ocular function of the public, the eye, gives the people a new power over the leaders as voice and opinion cannot do. Images, this is the idea, are fatally popularized. Much more than words, because words can be manipulated, but vision is there. And if the leader is under our eyes, there is no way of concealment. We see immediately. He cannot pretend that he's not there. He's there. So we can manipulate words. It's harder to manipulate images. reason, Jeffrey Green said, for this reason, we think the images are a stronger power of control, because the leaders fear the people's eyes much more than they fear people's opinion. The leaders feel the influence of fashion like everybody else, and this is what controls them. We don't need other controls. They are controlled by the fact that they are seen by us, and this is a great control indeed. Thus, he says, the people becomes audience. When the people becomes an audience, they acquire in power much more than when we are actors in the traditional political sense. In some plebiscitary politics, things possible to make the passive condition of the viewers into a reason of force. Actually, a force that neither words nor reasoned deliberation has. Because, I quote, it compels those who have massively disproportionate authority and power in a democracy in some sense to be compelled to recompense the public for this privilege. I quote. So we accept the privilege that the few have, but we put a burden on them. And the burden is that they cannot claim any privacy, any secrecy. We want them under our eyes. And this is an extraordinary control. Now, at first glance, this idea seems very compelling, because it is undeniable that those who compete for power should be aware they don't enjoy nor can claim the same latitude of negative liberty as we ordinary citizens. More power entails more responsibility and thus less liberty of concealment. As we know, political power longs for the rings of dignity. Or the power to be invisible in order to be able to do what otherwise the power couldn't do. So secrecy is a basic good in private life of the individual, but is an obstacle in the case of public office. Of course, a minister or a prime minister is protected in his rights, his basic rights as anybody else. However, in order for his life to be proved transparent and lawful, some extra inspections may be needed. So in this case, trust doesn't come ex ante as a blank check, but it entails and actually requires corroboration of evidence. As a matter of fact, running for a political office is the choice of the candidate whose outcome comes with a mix of honor and power. You know. Now, is this idea convincing? And Posner and Vermeulen tells us the public can substitute for procedures and institutions of control, and even for divisions of power. In a word, they say, democracy of the audience can break the dialectic relation of institutions and opinion without changing the nature of the democratic government. And I criticize this theory or this argument by using, fortunately, a case that I have, this is the Italian case. To begin with, the politician's motive for wearing a socially acceptable mask did not disappear with the advent of modern democracy. And the optimistic argument for the controlling power of the ocular public is unconvincing and unwarranted. It is based on abstract considerations on the role of the ocular public that the actual experience seems to disprove. Let's take the case of the Prime Minister, as I mentioned before, he was permanently under the eyes of the media, who included in his life, not necessarily for revealing his lawless behavior, but for satisfying the thirst of scandalous news in the public, which, on his turn, created the market of scandals and made public opinion in tabloid format. So putting the private life of the Prime Minister under people's side did not serve either to control or to limit his power. Moreover, it did not even deter him from living as he did. So the fact that he owned and controlled many television stations was certainly an argument, but it's not enough argument. Even more than ownership of the means of information, the empire of the opulent or the inflation of images was the factor that made vision inept power of inspection. Why so? The paradox of stressing the aesthetic factor of public opinion at the expense of the understanding factor and the political factor is that it does not pay attention to the fact that images are the source of a kind of judgment that evaluates private taste, emotional reactions, more than political and moral facts. Let me mention an author who saw it better than anybody else, which is Immanuel Kant. Kant explains that taste exalts rather than contains the rhetorical potentiality of vision. And moreover, it isolates people instead of making possible communication. Why so? Because while it is possible to argue about taste, it is impossible to dispute about taste. Because the anticipation, you don't discuss that. They are private, they are subject, they are subjective. We don't object taste. The most we can do is, with the many diversity of taste around us, is to have faith, and I will quote from his words immediately, to have faith that we come to a mutual agreement. I quote from him. There must be hope of coming to mutual agreement once we start with faith. Hence, one must be able to count on grounds for the judgment that doesn't have merely private validity like a subjective taste, which is nevertheless impossible and completely opposite to the fundamental principle that indeed everyone has his own taste. We cannot judge it, we cannot discuss it, we cannot even communicate. There is no sense. So what is the outcome of images and taste? As Sartori wrote brilliantly, the action is this, I quote, that the priorities of television are the scoop, the shot, the image, and the rating, because they look for the audience, the largest possible audience, not for the critical understanding or the participatory understanding. Thus, the hegemony of the ocular would drive the public in exactly the opposite direction as intended by supporters of plebiscite. Indeed, if what we have said of taste is, if this is right, then the audience doesn't control the leader at all. But instead, it stimulates the leader to do what exactly the leader has to do in order to be successful. There is a kind of sympathetic connection between the two. And when you have a sympathetic identification, it's very hard to be critical. As we know, accountability goes to the opposite direction as identification and adhesion with the leader. So the paradox of the total video public is that political decisions remain unseen and unrevealed because they are most of the time very unattractive to the audience. They don't get the audience attention. They don't get the crowd. They are not spectacular. Knowing very little of what elected politicians were doing was the cost that Italian citizens paid by becoming a big eye watching the spectacle of politics. So making the life of the leader visible and an object of spectacle may engender new opacity under the pretense of publicity. It may make the people not only less in control, but actually unable to watch. In the domain of politics, more vulnerable to corruption and discretionality. Alessandro Pizzorno, in an incredibly important book several years ago on the power of the judges and judgment, has interpreted the paradox, this paradox, the paradox of the by analyzing the transformation of the language of politics, the transformation of the language and the judgment of politics with a judgment and a language based on subjective taste and morality. I quote, the centrality of symbols over programs, of the personality of the leader over the collective of party supporters, translates into the centrality of moral qualities over political qualities in the formulation of political judgment by the citizen. Quote, political virtues, prudence, competence, decline, while private personal virtues, aesthetic, sexual, pleasantly, become central. A proof outcome of this transformation is the increase of concealment of political issues from the public eye. Because what should be an object of public visibility is not as interesting to the viewers and the media experts as the person of the leader. So politics becomes more professional in the sense that it becomes an activity that leaves off concealed exchange. And finally, the plebiscite of the audience facilitates corruption. So giving the people a total honor power doesn't give them any guarantee that what they are going to see is the most important thing they need to see. Also because they don't decide on the agenda of what needs to be seen. The technicians of the media and the staff of the leaders decide what needs to go happen. But for opinion to be public, it's not enough that they are diffused among the public. It is also necessary that they pertain to public things, to res publica. And the judgment on these pertinence is something that the citizens develop freely when they participate in the making of their opinion as citizens, not as private viewers, or not seen. They do so when they do other things besides watching, like participating in movements, associations, elections, making their representatives aware of their problems and interests, contesting them, voting them out, and so on and so forth. It is not so whether only the content and the doer that makes a fact and public fact, but also the form in which it is achieved. So citizens contribute in making the public when they induce the state to do what can, so it should do, submitting its deeds to the citizen's judgment in order to be evaluated according to the principles of the public use of reason, which is, or are, equality of consideration and reason. So the public use of citizens' reason demands that the state acts are. But at what point? At what point does the publicity of a public deed start? This is an important point. Does it start when it is still in the form of a plan in the mind of the politician? Or when it's under debate in public institutions, like an assembly or in a public forum? When a public deed starts to become public? In commenting on this, on the counter maxim of public reason, Pompeo asked years ago the following question. If for a government concealing these deeds is in and by itself an admission that those deeds are a reason of scandal, I quote, what is that constitutes a scandal? And at what point is a scandal born? How much exposed to the public must be a deed in order to count as being under people's eyes? Put otherwise, no decision can be made in a fully transparent way. The myth of transparency is really badly called. Particularly when, like in a democracy, individual freedom is the principle that guides political behavior, not only private behavior, because it's the condition thanks to which bargaining and compromise among public parties and plural parties and interests can be achieved. To paraphrase Anual, rights create an healthy opacity behind which a person can hide and live in the intimacy with herself. So opacity is not necessarily a bad thing, and moreover, all political actions are based on transactions or compromises that presume some opacity. More than that, it is the way in which public deeds are made public that is in and in itself a non-transparent issue. When? In what form? By means of what kind of images, and so on and so forth. So, although the persistent claim to transparency that these theories of plebiscitary of the audience put forward, there seems to be no way out of opacity. The ocular power of the people operates on the person of the leader rather than politics, as we said before. This is what makes it a chapter in the politics of leadership more than a politics of democracy. That is, visual ocular watching is part of the theory and concern for the leadership, not democracy necessarily. This is what makes it, this is very important, this is what makes it problematic for the democracy. As James Turley wrote years ago in analyzing the Wilsonian leadership, I quote, presidential debates, public inquiry, press conferences, all of these are the strategies of ocular democracy, which pertain essentially to the watchability of the behavior. But as Luhmann argued convincingly, opacity is implicit in the paradigm of watchability. Because, I quote from Luhmann, being offered from outside, entertainment aims to activate that which we ourselves experience, hope for, fear, and forget, just as narrating of means one's being. So, the ocular public stimulates identification and empathy with the performer. Two phenomena that are hardly conducive of critical or controlling attitude, or judgment and monitoring, mistrust and skeptical disposition toward those who are in power. Final conclusion, because I think, right? So, Bernard